everybody. Welcome to BanjoBenClark.com. I'm Banjo Ben, here with one of my trusty sidekicks, my little sister, my favorite mandolin player, Miss Penny Lee Clark. Welcome to the cabin, Penny.
Thank you, brother.
Today we're going to teach something that we get lots of questions on, especially at camps. People are always asking you about these swing chords on mandolin and using them in different settings. That's what we're going to talk about today, specifically the diminished chord, right?
Yes.
And how we can use those to go from like the 4 to the 1, or from the 4 to the 5, or
from
even
the 1 to the
5. The 1 to the 5. All kinds of different ways. And on the mandolin, you know, once you get those shapes down, you're good to go. You just need to know how to apply them. So fun lesson today. I get to hang out with my sister and play some great music. If you're watching somewhere else besides BanjoBenClark.com, you can come on over, join as a Go Pick member, get access to this lesson and lots more. You have other swing chord lessons on there too, right?
I might. It's been a long time.
It has been a while. Been way too long. If you are watching here on the site, then you've got the tabs available, and we will get started right away. Okay, Penny, the first question that I want to ask and then, of course, answer is, what is a diminished chord, and then how do we find it on the mandolin? So if you're walking in downtown Nashville and somebody wants to come up to you and say, tell me what a diminished chord is, or I'll take your wallet, then what would you say?
Well, what would I say? Probably the first thing I would tell them is, well, obviously, it's the first scale tone of the chord that you're playing, and then it's the flatted 3, the flatted 5th, and then oftentimes you'll add the diminished 7 in there to fill it out.
Okay, diminished 7 is like a double flat 7.
Yeah.
It's like a step and a half below the root note of the chord. Okay, so let's talk about that just in terms of the key of C.
Yeah.
Because that's easy. So a C diminished 7 chord would be a C note, and then a flat 3 would be the E flat, then a flat 5 would be the G flat, and then if we take the diminished 7, that's going to be actually an A note, right?
Yeah.
Or a C double flat.
Yeah.
Okay. Or a C triple flat, whatever. All right, so that's interesting. Okay, well, how do we play that on the mandolin? Because let's be honest, there's lots of different kinds of diminished shapes on the mandolin, but then there are some that are more applicable than others and actually are used in real life and or easier to play.
Yeah.
And that's probably the ones that people are going to first get a grip on easiest. So why don't you show us how to play one?
Yeah, the first shape that I learned that's fairly simple to achieve is going from, for example, a D to a D sharp diminished.
Okay, a D sharp
like
diminished
that.
7. Okay, so actually one way to think about a diminished chord is, you know, when it's mostly used, it's used to go from one chord up a half step. Okay, so like a D to a D sharp diminished, or C to a C sharp diminished. So the way that I've often thought about diminished chords is that you just take a chord and raise the root a half step.
You could think of
and
it
leave
like
the
that.
rest of it the same. So like a D sharp diminished chord is just a D chord with a raised root from a D to a D sharp.
Raise the root.
Raise the root. And then you would throw the 7th in there if you wanted of the D chord.
Of the D, yeah.
Yeah, so the only thing different is just D's raised to D sharp. So if you're doing a 3-string D chord, and you got 7, 4, and 5 are the frets, right? 7, 4, 5. And then if you wanted to make that a D sharp diminished, you could, of course, this is a D note, and this is a D note. So you could raise both of those a half step. Why don't you try that?
Well, it's hard to reach it.
Okay, but then all you've got are 2 different scale notes in there, right?
Yep.
You've got a D sharp and an F sharp. And that's not telling us a whole lot about the chord.
Yeah.
So you can do a different position.
Yep. So what I do usually is I drop my D note down to a C.
Okay, that's the 7th.
That's the 7th, and then I put my ring finger on the 5th fret on the A string, and that gives me that. I'm sorry, on the 6th fret on the A string, that gives you the D sharp note.
Okay, so we have a diminished 7th tone up here. We have the flat 3 right here, and then we have that root up there.
Yeah.
Or if you want to think about it, you've got a D7 chord with a D sharp note instead of a D. Okay, so that's interesting. So 5, 4, 6. 5, 4, 6. Okay, so I think a good thing for people to practice would be to go from like a D chord to that D sharp.
I tell people that, just practice that.
So your index finger doesn't move.
Nope. Index finger stays the same.
Okay. And what's also cool about the mandolin is that we have the same intervals between each one of the strings. So you could take that chord shape and just move it down a string, and you would raise a fifth.
Yep.
So start with back with your major chord.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if you just go down a string, that turns into an A chord, and you can make an A sharp diminished by doing the same move, or A sharp diminished 7.
Yep, and there's also fuller versions that are very easy to come by, actually. They're not too much harder. You can actually achieve that A note that you want, that flatted fifth of the D sharp diminished, by putting your ring finger on the 5th string.
Do you do that one a lot?
I do that a lot, yeah. But it's just not as quick if you're just passing through. Passing through.
Yeah, there you go. And we're using these pretty quickly, aren't we?
But that's the full version.
Cool. So you should be able to find any kind of diminished chord on the mandolin if you know how to find notes on your neck.
Exactly.
Right? Because you could just make that 3-finger major chord. For instance, let's just do a little exercise. Let's find a G to a G sharp diminished. So there's your G. There you go. Okay, let's do an E to an E sharp diminished. Okay, which would be really an F diminished or E sharp diminished. 7. Okay, cool. So now that we know what they are and where to find them, we need to figure out when to use them.
Yeah.
Because as you heard in Just a Closer Walk with Thee, there's lots of opportunity to walk with thee. There's lots of opportunity to use these diminished chords to spice up your mandolin rhythm playing, and that's where we're going to go next. If you're watching somewhere else beside BanjoBenClark.com, you can come on over, see the rest of this 30-minute lesson with Penny Lee teaching us diminished songs, diminished chords, 4 songs. Let's go.